Alright, just a quick update. I already spent some time on the Southern Mountain by Bachmann, but this is the other engine that I got. This is the Bachmann 280. This one was really interesting. There was a whole bunch of bugs I saw, including a dead spider that was just inside all the valve gear. So I cleaned all that out, as well as cobwebs. I took the shell off, as you could tell, as well as the pistons and the pilot. And so the engine is weathered, so unfortunately I can't get rid of the weathering, but I did clean off all the dirt. There was a whole lot of dirt, especially on the tender here. And as you can see, it's very nice and clean now. Yeah, it's nice and clean. So it's really nice. I just used some soap and water, dish soap and warm water. And yeah, so I cleaned all this stuff off, so now they're very clean. The drive system still needs a bit of cleaning. They're quite dirty still, and there's a whole lot of grease. You can see it's barely free rolling there. It should be free rolling, but it's like all stuck. So a lot of grease in there I got to clean out. But the main problem with this engine was that it did not run. It was sold as not running, and the issue is, and this is fairly common for Bachmann engines, not common. So like I'm not saying you shouldn't buy them, but I am saying if it's not running, you can narrow it down to pretty much two problems, and both of those problems are cracked gears. So the Bachmann engine uses a can motor. This is a 3-pole can motor with a flywheel, which is really nice. And you can see there's a little tiny gear inside that. That brings it down to a belt, which brings it down to this piece. The belt goes through the white gear, and then it goes to the worm, and that goes to the gear. Excuse the train sound. That goes to the drive gear on the third axle. So the most common points of failure is this gear and this gear being cracked. And a cracked gear basically means that usually the gear is not cracked, so it holds on very tightly to the axle. But when it's cracked, it opens up, and so there's no more, because the gears are pressure fitted to the axles. So when the gear is cracked, it just basically spins freely onto the axle. So in fact, I can hold this belt down. Can you see that? I don't know if guys can see that. I can hold this belt down and I can spin this flywheel. You can see the gear is not spinning. You can sort of see the gear is not spinning at all when I spin the flywheel, which means that it's loose. It's basically it should be spinning like this, right? It's spinning along with the flywheel. But if you hold the gear down, basically holding the belt down in any way, the gear kind of just stays solid. So in other words, the gear is no longer spinning along with the axle, it spins freely on the axle. And so basically I need to get rid of that gear. In fact, you can actually see the crack right there, sort of. You can sort of see the crack in the gear. Yeah, there you go. You can see that crack. So in short, this gear is bad. I have tried removing the flywheel from this motor. It's on tight. I don't know how. Bachmann must have glued it. I don't know what happened, but basically, it means that this entire motor assembly needs to be replaced. That being said, I do have this other Bachmann engine that I bought last year in the unboxing series. This I paid, I think, $17 for this engine. It's complete garbage. It's missing a whole lot of parts. Like the oh shoot, my bad. The stirrup steps at the really end are broken off. The ladder's all messed up. The engine is missing like a ladder on this side. The shell isn't it isn't all right. Some part of the plastic broke off, so it's just loose now. There's a whole lot of issues on this engine, but it was $17. It was a parts engine, and I do recall there is a good motor inside there, or a good gear and motor inside there. So I'll just be taking that motor and placing it in here, and hopefully this engine should be back up and running. One more problem is that the plug that goes between the engine and tender, the two wire plug, which is the pickups, came broken off. Unfortunately, I don't really have a way of fixing that right now. I might just have to replace the plug assembly entirely because, unfortunately, there's really not much I could do about this situation right here. There's just simply not enough wire there to solder it back on. So, that's another problem. But other than that, that should be it. Just the gear, and then the plug should be replaced, and then this terrible weathering job terrible weathering job aside, it should be back up and running. And yeah, so hopefully we'll see it back running then. All right, so I'm back with the motor put into place inside here. I also cleaned up the chassis. As you can see, this thing used to be disgusting. It was just full of grease. And you just do the simple thing. You just take everything apart, including the drive rods. There was a lot of carpet hair and or dog hair in like all around in between the in between the spokes and in between all these drivers. So I took all the rods apart. I took all the wheels off, separated them individually, and then for the chassis, you just remove all the grease. That includes the parts where the wheels touch. So like here, the sprung piece, and then obviously the side. People usually forget the side, but you got to clean the sides because that's sometimes where the wheels scrape against. So I clean all the grease off of there, and then as far as the wheels go, I just clean the grease off of the axles, the inner side of the wheel because that's where the pickups touch, and then the tire itself. I also got rid of all the cat hairs and stuff like that because those just made it look bad. Yeah. So that I did that for each wheel. Again, also the side rods. There was a lot of grease on the side rods, so I just got rid of all that stuff. And it definitely takes a lot of time. You do got to be careful and just go slowly. And yeah, you eventually just get rid of all the grease. So now it has much better electrical contact, and also it's a lot more free spinning. A lot less friction in the system, which is nice. Here we have the contacts. As you can see, this uses brush pickups. So basically, these two are the front wheels. Here, these two are the second wheel, third driver's here, and fourth driver's back here. And basically, they're very fragile. You got to be careful with the Bachmann ones. And they just gently scrape against the side of the wheel, in the inner side of the wheel. And yeah, so they're kind of all bent out of place and they're really dirty. So I just cleaned it all up. And this is ready to go back. And before I put everything back together, I'm going to use some light gear oil. I don't have Labelle, unfortunately, but any light gear oil will work. You do not want to use grease. You only want to use grease on gears. So like I'll put some grease here, but this one already looks fine. But like for the axle itself, I just use very light gear oil. Anything thicker will just inhibit the how free it rolls. And yeah, so I'm going to use some of this. Put them on wherever the wheel touches, scrapes against, I guess you could say scrapes against the chassis. So these quote-unquote bearings, they're not really bearings, areas. And yeah, I put the contact back into place. I could use some electrically conductive oil for the contacts, but I'm not going to really worry about that. I kind of stopped doing that because it kind of makes it kind of dirty. But anyways, you put the bottom plate back on and it should be ready. One more thing is I replaced the broken plug. I took some of this PCB plug. Looks like this, and I basically just soldered the wires onto it, and then I put a heat shrink tubing over it, so it works as like a stand-in plug. I don't have any JST plugs though, unfortunately, so I just use some of these pin connectors. This is the male and this is the female, and you make your own plug out of it, which is pretty cool. And this actually fits into the tender, which I just I painted it red and black, so you know which polarity to plug it in, but you can just plug it directly into that one, and it fits fine. So it's not a great setup, but I don't have, you gotta work with the parts you have, so, yep. Alright, and this is it back all assembled and ready to run. So this thing runs as smooth as butter, almost like new. Has a really satisfying purr to it. I really like it. And the headlight works too, although this headlight, the Bachmann 280s are infamous for having really dim headlights. So if I turn to like full volume, or not volume, speed, you can see the headlight turn on. But yeah. Overall, though, I think this is a pretty good restoration. Very simple fixes, as I said. Just the normal degreasing of all the drivetrain, the cleaning of the shell with just dish soap and water, and then, in this case, a cracked gear that I had to replace. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.